This is the OBGYN surgical instruments, the basics. This is a Forster sponge forceps. It's also called a sponge stick. If you use a Raytech to it, it's for grasping tissue or holding a Raytech sponge. That's the Forster sponge forceps. This one is the Haney hysterectomy forceps. There's no nickname for this one, and it's for heavy tissue occlusion. The tip looks like a crocodile teeth, and it's used for clamping. The Haney hysterectomy forceps. This one is the Zeppelin hysterectomy forceps. It's also called a Z clamp. It's for heavy tissue occlusion as well. It has a 90-degree bent tip. That's the Zeppelin hysterectomy forceps, also called the Z clamp. This one is the Pennington forceps. There's no nickname. It's for grasping tissue, especially during intestinal or rectal surgeries, and also in cesarean section. It has a flat tip with a triangle facing down. The Pennington forceps for grasping tissue during intestinal or rectal surgeries and cesarean section. This is the Overstreet endometrial polyp forceps, also called the polyp forceps. It's for grasping uterine polyps, and it looks like an oblong cup on top. That's the Overstreet endometrial polyp forceps. Next is the Thomas curette. It's a blunt curette for removing growths or tissue for biopsy from the lining of the uterus. That's the Thomas curette or the blunt curette. This is the Sims curette. It's a sharp curette for removing growths or tissue for biopsy from the lining of the uterus. The Thomas is blunt. The Sims is sharp. These are the curettes. This is the Jacob's uterine vulsulum forceps. The nickname is Jacob's tenaculum. It's for grasping cervix and applying traction to the uterus. The tip looks like a snake fangs, two thick snake fangs. That's the Jacob uterine vulsulum forceps or the Jacob's tenaculum for grasping cervix and applying traction to the uterus. This one is the Braun tenaculum. It's double tooth. It's also called the tenaculum or a Schroeder. It's used for grasping cervix and applying traction to the uterus. And we also have the Braun tenaculum, which is a single tooth. It's also called a tenaculum and a shoulder. It's also for grasping cervix and applying traction to the uterus. We have a Sims uterine sound, no nickname, and it measures the depth of intrauterine cavity. It looks like a very, very long Q-tip with a handle. And that's the Sims uterine sound for intrauterine cavity measurement. And this one is a needle holder, which is the Haney needle holder or a Haney needle driver or a curved needle holder. This is used for suturing around curved structures and used for OBGYN. This is the Haney needle holder. Next is the Lister scissor or the bandage scissors for opening the uterus during cesarean section. It has a very blunt tip and a 45-degree curve to it. That's the Lister scissor. It's a heavy-duty scissor, much like a Mayo but heavier. This is a Haney retractor. The nickname is a lateral retractor. The usage is for retracting the vaginal wall. This is the thin, 90-degree bent, and a curve by the handle. This is the Haney-Simon retractor. There's no nickname, and it's used for retracting the vaginal wall. It has a curved 90-degree tip and a heavy handle. Haney-Simon retractor. The Sims retractor. The nickname for this one is Sims double-ended vaginal speculum. It's also for retracting the vaginal wall. The Sims retractor, or the double-ended vaginal speculum. This one is the vaginal wall retractor. It looks like a Gelpie with a duckbill at the tip. It's a lateral wall retractor, and it's used for lateral retraction of the vaginal walls. This is the vaginal wall retractor, also called the duckbill retractor, or the lateral wall retractor. This one is the Dali bladder retractor. The nickname is the bladder blade, and it's for retracting the bladder during a cesarean section. It looks like the platypus in Phineas and Ferb, and it has a handle that has a curve at the end. Very heavy, and that's the Delay bladder retractor, or the bladder blade. These ones are the dilators, the Hank and the Pratt. It's for dilating the cervix. The Hank has ridges and the Pratt is smooth. The Hank have ridges and the Pratt is smooth. These are the dilators. This one is a Graves vaginal speculum, or the duckbill speculum. It's used for retracting anterior and posterior vaginal walls to visualize the cervix. It's the Graves vaginal speculum, or the duckbill speculum. Next is the Ovard weighted vaginal speculum. It's a weighted speculum for retracting the vaginal wall. This is a hands-free retractor. That's the Ovard weighted vaginal speculum, or the weighted speculum. Next, we have the Cohen-Akert intrauterine probe cannula. The nickname to this one is the Cohen cannula. This is used to stabilize the cervix. It looks like a sphere with a bent needle tip. That's the Cohen-Akert intrauterine probe cannula, or the Cohen cannula, to stabilize the cervix. This one is the Simpson delivery forceps, or the Simpson obstetrical forceps. Forceps delivery of an infant. This is for when the baby got stuck. That's the Simpson delivery forceps, or the Simpson obstetrical forceps. And the last one, we have the O'Sullivan-O'Connor retractor. This is the shallow one. The nickname to this one is the Irish, or O'Connor-O'Sullivan. It is for retracting the abdominal or pelvic wall. It's a circle with a bunch of instruments attached to it. The O'Sullivan-O'Connor retractor, or the Irish.